Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you back to Ohio Exopolitics. I'm your host, Mark Snyder. Seems like a long time since I've been on the air. I had a musical event this past week, and I was on a show on KCOR. Solaris Blue Raven interviewed me 2 hours again on the Meyer material, so we'll get that archived to you now. Just in my email, it looks like Michael Cremo has agreed to be on the show. I don't know exactly if we're going to pre-record. I imagine we're going to pre-record. So I'll post that archive as well as soon as I get it. And as soon as I get the one from KCOR, I'll post that. I've been, last night and this morning, listening over and over again to a tremendous video created by Michael Udebrook from Figu, Canada, who I've had on the show before. Would love to get back. I'll have to do that. He's just done a great video on mental fluidal powers. It has beautiful music in the background. It's very easy to listen to. You can listen to it while you're doing something else. That's what I have been doing since late last night, or not late for me, 10:15, 10:30. We're going to get to that. That'll probably be the first thing we talk about. I might do a quick Billy Meyer intro in case there are some new listeners, and it looks like there are tons of new listeners by the way these archives are growing, and the listenership is tremendous. I've been updating the website like crazy. Google Ohio Exopolitics, and you will find the website exopoliticsohio.us. So that brings me to today's show. Edward Albert Meyer is an 80-year-old man. He lives in Switzerland. He's written about 50 books, I think, taken 1,400 photographs of extraterrestrial craft flying around his home in Hinterschmidt-Rudy. There have been 100 eyewitnesses. Billy's passed lie detector tests. Yet he is one of the most unknown and maligned individuals in all of the ufology or exopolitical world. What can I say? Once I found the Meyer material, I pretty much dropped everything else to a degree, not entirely, but there's really nothing else that compares to the Meyer material in terms of understanding what is going on with the world. Billy started his extraterrestrial contacts back in 1945 with a man named Svath. Those contacts then shifted in 1953 when Billy was 16 years old to a woman named Asket from the Dow universe. Those contacts went on for 11 years, as also the contacts with Svath did. Billy then had 11 years of a normal life, and in the middle 1970s, his contacts with Semyasu started, who was a Plejaren like Svath. And these contacts continued for 4 or 5 years. Semyasu had a terrible accident where she suffered actually some brain damage. So she's currently in recovery and will be for the next 70 years or so. Billy's current contacts are primarily with 2 individuals, one named Quetzal and the other named Ptah. Quetzal used to command all the Plejaren forces in our solar system. Evidently there are none anymore. And Ptah was the commander, I think is still the commander of the mothership. Contact Report 31, Billy documented his time on the mothership, which is truly a fantastic story. One we'll have to pick back up with someday soon. Today we're going to talk about mental fluidal powers. All apparitions, meaning ghosts, are nothing but mental fluidal powers that are made mobile by the unconscious or the subconscious of some person. So, and typically a person is not aware at all that they're causing these apparitions. This whole process, it takes place subconsciously or unconsciously. I'll give you an example. And all of this information, again, comes from a guy named Michael Uderbrook, who translated one of Billy's books. So it always, it comes from Billy. The process that I'm telling you about takes place unconsciously or subconsciously. So there's a woman in the United States, an older woman. I don't know if she's still alive, but about 4 p.m. every afternoon, the ghost of a child of about 10 years old would appear in her house. It would sing. It would walk around the house. This little child would go into the garden, this apparition. So the child was actually the old lady that lived in the same home. The old lady would nap in her armchair every day at about 4 p.m., and then during that nap, she would have these strong memories of her childhood, which would appear as a dream of her in the house where she lived when she was younger. And so what was happening is this older woman was unconsciously activating the fluidal powers which are stored in the house. So our minds have a tremendous energy that goes forth, and this energy can be stored in our clothes and our furniture and like musical instruments, rings, even in the trees in your yard. So the ghost, in this case, was actually the mental fluidal powers of the old lady who had been storing this power into the house for years and years. And when she would sleep and she would have this dream, it would activate these stored mental fluidal powers, and it would manifest as an image of her as a child singing and walking around in the garden, walking around the house. So this is one of the things I think that's so interesting and important about this is it starts to realize the incredible power of our thoughts, the might of the thoughts, and this is where the information starts to overlap. And I've been talking about the might of thoughts now for years in this tremendous book that Billy has. So something similar to the story I just told you about the child occurred in Hinterschmidruti, where Billy's home is in Switzerland, which is about 45 minutes east of Zurich. In the early days, a shadowy figure would sometimes dart around the house there in Hinterschmidruti and would end up making noises in the attic. And then someone would switch on the light in the attic and there would be silence. So what was happening actually is that there were fluidal powers that were stored in the house over many years. And the more labile a person is, meaning the more easily aroused a person is, the more likely these kinds of things can happen. So water and fire can sometimes be used to get rid of these fluidal energies. However, that can damage the house, so it's not practical many times to do that. And these fluidal powers can be stored particularly in things like rings. So if you have a valuable ring that you wear a lot, it probably has a lot of energy associated with it, stored in it. Don't put it into a purse where it can come into contact with things that store up strange or unusual swinging waves that aren't associated with yourself. Now, there's something called pure thought swinging waves versus fluidal energies. So pure thought swinging waves arise from thoughts themselves. Fluidal energies arise out of the entire mental block. So these fluidal energies may be a little bit more powerful. I don't know. Pure thought swinging waves can harness also great power within themselves. And these mental swinging waves, they can be stored for thousands of years. But pure thought swinging waves do not deposit themselves into things. Objects are not affected by pure thought swinging waves. Only the swinging waves that come from the entire mental block will deposit themselves into clothes, into houses, into furniture, into rings, musical instruments, trees outside. Another thing to think about, and something to be maybe concerned about a little bit, is that churches and monasteries are places where these kinds of swinging waves and fluidal powers are stored, as well as the body and the skeleton can also store these fluidal powers. So these gewalt, or negative energies, can be stored in these churches over many, many centuries. For centuries, these fluidal energies can be stored up in monasteries or places of pilgrimage. And these fluidal energies can contain very strong negative powers that can impact people in dangerous ways. A human being that is sensitive to these swinging waves can be very negatively affected. In fact, Billy was almost killed going into one of these monasteries in Switzerland. So the swinging waves are often stored in a very degenerated form in these old churches, and these fluidal powers in this very degenerated form can cause damage to an evolved person, because for centuries and centuries people come into these churches with all their problems on their mind, and they're in great grief, and they're praying frantically to God to help them. So all these stored up negative energies and negative thoughts that people that aren't oriented to the truth can be stored in these structures. And what happens is the people who are religious come in there and they become even more slaved by these fluidal energies. A human being that is evolving, that's oriented to the truth, can thereby be greatly damaged by the energies stored in these centuries-old structures. So if a human being that is sensitive to the powers goes into one of these older churches, that person can be killed by the negative blocks of energy that have built up over centuries. And that's what happened to Billy when he was nearly killed in one of these old monasteries in Switzerland. So that is the summarized form of Michael Uderbrook's very good movie that's called, what is that called? Fluidal Powers Part 2. I think if you put that in YouTube, you should be able to find it. Pretty phenomenal stuff. I wanted to move on to something from Contact Report 512. On the Earth, there is a religious organization that works with the Secret Service to manipulate people via television. And these televisions allow these organizations, these religious organizations, I didn't put enough time on the show here. My bad. Sometimes I'll get just 60, there we go. Now we're back up to 60 minutes. We're fine. So in any sense, I was talking about religious organizations that work with the Secret Service to manipulate people via television. And these televisions allow organizations to look directly into your room and watch you watching the televisions. And these computers can be, also happens with your computers, your computer can be controlled from the outside, and it can be impaired. And Billy has even been affected by this, such that certain of his writings that deal with religious groups have been intentionally affected. And if you are on the computer, which I certainly am, or on watching the television, your thoughts can be steered by these religious organizations and secret services, and they can affect your behavior in a very negative way. And Billy's writings that deal with religious and sectarian delusion have also been negatively infected by these impulses. So I don't know if it's the CIA or the NSA or the DIA, but these secret services manipulate people through television and through computers, and they can even steer the behavior of people. And remember, what they want is a controlled society. They want a microchipped population that has no freedom of speech, no freedom of movement, where they're completely controlled from the day of their birth. That's what the elite want. So they're starting to steer the behavior of people. This is done during movies and cinemas. The entire internet is now dominated by these vibrational impulses, which are taken up by people's subconsciousness. So pay close attention to your thoughts and be aware that sometimes your thoughts may not be your own. So these impulses steer people unconsciously. And it can steer you into becoming religious. It can steer you into becoming a terrorist. And people are influenced subconsciously by music also. Man, the I call it screaming music. They have this combination of rap and heavy metal, and it's grinding, and it just wears you down, and it weakens you. So people are influenced subconsciously by music. And because of this, many people cannot even control their thoughts because they are being steered subconsciously. And that's why I repeat the phrase that I kind of pulled out of the Might of Thoughts from different categories of what he was teaching. And it says, I'm confident, I'm optimistic, I'm relaxed, I'm cheerful, I'm enthusiastic, I'm thankful, I'm in harmony. I persevere, I persist, I endure, I am calm, I'm satisfied. So this will stop the unconscious steering of your thoughts. And if you've been hung up thinking negatively a lot, your thoughts can just run wild on their own and be totally negatively steered. So remember, you are the master of your own destiny. You create good circumstances in your life through your healthy thinking. You are the master of your own destiny. You have good thoughts. You have good feelings. You therefore have good habits. And I am the master of my own destiny. And through my good thoughts, my good feelings, my good habits, I create good circumstances in my life. Now, sometimes people are not acting because of their own will. It takes a very clear consciousness to not be steered by these impulses. The worldwide population of the earth does not realize that they are being manipulated and steered subconsciously. You can see this during the shopping frenzies. Right near Christmas, which is coming right up, people go into buying frenzies. They're triggered subconsciously. I've often wondered by that. I look at these people fighting over each other, staying up until 4 a.m, camping outside these stores. The lines go on for hundreds of yards. It's absurd just to get a new gadget. Well, these people are being manipulated subconsciously. And this is creating a great discord on the earth. And people also have bad behavior because, for one thing, this disharmonious music that's being broadcasted all over the place, but also because of the unconscious impulses which are taking control of people. So I wanted to bring that up and just to remind you of all the ways you can be negatively effective. Love, genuine love, is the highest principle in all creation. It is the first creational natural law. And this love is a reverence It's the fundamental element of all existence. And it reverences the fundamental element of true, all-embracing love. So this is the final, ultimate principle of the creation. The creation is love. It radiates love. Wisdom-conditioned love is a harmonious state of absolute connectedness in all things. It's in an indestructible form without temporal limits. So the incredible splendor of nature is the visible expression of the love of creation. And every tiny animal and every tiny plant fulfills its purpose in love. And you, as a human being, must feel that nature calls at your breast. And if you open yourself up to these creational powers, you will kind of experience a living current of love which flows directly from creation. Remember, this love is not built up on emotions. It's a fine fluidal perception. And this perception comes from a concentrated, respected observation. Now, remember, the spiritual plane, or there's an energy band around our planet, the fine matter world. It's where our spirit form goes during the time of death. And we are now in the physical world. There's an invisible spiritual plane. These are kind of like two dimensions, okay? So we live and dwell in a physical body until the time of passing away comes again, and then our spirit form goes in to the realm of the spirit world. And I think on page 216 of the book, The Psyche, we might have something that talks a little bit about the spirit form. If now it is learned that the human being is animated by a tiny part piece of the creational spirit, that means in no case. We're not actually, our spirit form is actually not part of the universal consciousness, but we think of it as a fragment of it. A tailstock is the term. And the job of the spirit form has a task of absorbing all the accumulated knowledge from your past lives. So you have a spiritual consciousness, and that spiritual consciousness is probably about 4 million years old. So you can go back 100 years and imagine that was probably the time of your previous reincarnation, roughly, estimation. So maybe it's 2017 now, maybe 1917, back by the time of World War I, was probably your last personality. And what happens is, of course, during reincarnation, the spirit form comes into the embryo, human embryo, the fetus of 21 days, and it brings this reincarnating spirit. And it brings a new personality, a new conscious mind. In your subconscious mind is programmed all the knowledge and the wisdom of your previous personalities. Your spirit form also contains all the wisdom of your previous personalities. And you'll be impulsed by your spirit form. You'll be impulsed by this wisdom in your subconscious. So your material consciousness, your personality, your unconscious, your subconscious, your conscious mind has to grow up again. It has to learn to talk and walk. And you live a new material life. And each time the spirit form incarnates, it incarnates as a new personality. And the personality refers to your characteristic patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Okay, so the whole purpose of all these reincarnations is evolution. And creation evolves, and you play a role in creation's evolution by all of your reincarnations, which go through 7 stages of human evolution over billions of years for these evolutions. We incarnate in physical human bodies 40 to 60 million years, and there are 7 stages of what's primitive life, rational life, intelligent life, real life, life in creational wisdom, life in this half spirit, half physical stage, and then life in a purely spiritual stage. And there are 7 types of evolution. There's the energetic evolution of creation. There is the evolution of the consciousness, which occurs by the human being reincarnating into physical bodies. There's instinct evolution, which animals have. There's impulse evolution, which plants have. There's an energy evolution, with sand, stones, crystals, and liquids have. There's also a microevolution, which occurs at the virus level, the bacteria level. And there's an intelligence evolution, which occurs to higher species of animals like apes, dolphins, horses, pigs, goats, parrots, donkeys, beasts of prey, elephants, you name it. Now, there's another a term that we probably need to get our mind wrapped around. It's called the JHWH, or the King of Wisdom, the Ishwish. Ptah, Pelagon, Jehovah, Atlant, Eris are examples of these Ishwishes. And there's the term Ishrish, which applies to women. These kings of wisdom, they're human beings. They're living in the last stages of human material existence before changing it over into the half-spiritual forms. And the Ishwish is just a human being like everybody else. But they're much higher in their consciousness. They're much higher in their spiritual development than the average human being. And the ancient title of King of Wisdom was brought here by our ancestors from Lyra Vega. And it became a religious thing with the Hebrews. And they have this term called the tetragrammaton. They would never pronounce the name of God, Yahweh, or so a term that was falsely equated with God. And equally other strange terms designated with the idea of God would be Yahweh or Jehovah or Adonai or Elohim, Lord, all these terms. But there's only a universal consciousness. There's really these Ishwishes that were on the earth in the ancient past were confused with the universal consciousness. And these Ishwishes manipulated people on the earth. Some of them were not very evolved or as evolved spiritually as they were in their scientific or material consciousness. And interestingly, some of these Ishwishes would be damaged or hurt or could even be killed by the vibration of the ignorance of the earth humans. So even though not all these Ishwishes were benevolent, they were even negatively affected by the thought impulses of human beings. And the earth humans would sometimes worship these people. They were just people, but they were a much higher evolution. The Maya material says that Jehovah, the Old Testament, was one of these Ishwishes. Just a side tangent, remember our universe is 46 trillion years old. It was brought forth through the idea of creation. The universal consciousness, I believe it's I don't even want to go there because that'll confuse things right now, but our universe has a consciousness which is driving the evolution of our universe. So I thought I want to switch gears here. We can maybe pick back up here, but I also want to take a little time to play some clips that we haven't listened to. And this is kind of conspiratorial in nature, but some people think some of these fires that we've been seeing may be the product of directed energy weapons or arson or things like that. And I thought it might be interesting to listen to this fire captain who talks about just that sort of thing here. So let me turn up a bit.
From the internet, and I have my sources that I go to. And the first thing that I noticed, I think, was the rapidity of the fire movement, which seemed abnormally fast to me, considering that there was no weather fronts or winds or anything that I was aware of that would have driven the fires that quickly. And also the number of fires was extremely alarming. Where did all these fires come from?
Mm-hmm.
How did they all start at once? And so I started digging. And when I started digging, I started looking at the research that was available for directed energy weapons. And what I started reading actual government documents that people had put up, various people had put up on the website, and looking at the destruction, which I have never seen in my career, the totality of the destruction on the structures. There was absolutely nothing left of the structures except foundation. Now, I've seen that with other fires, but not where it moves like that. Not where the fire is moving and one side of the street everything's fine, the other side of the street looks like a nuclear war zone. Never seen anything like that.
What other options could there be besides a high torch directed energy weapon that you could consider as a possibility in your experiences of all the firefighting you've done?
There's none that I could think of. There's none.
So this is the only plausible explanation that's being presented.
The only plausible explanation, in my opinion. That's the conclusion that I was brought to, based on my almost 30 years of experience.
And you know that steel melts in thousands of degrees and all this, and to see steel bent like that, but have vegetation and plant life and eucalyptus trees.
The holes that were burned through the hoods of cars all the way through the engine block are a little bit suspicious.
Wasn't that crazy?
Yeah.
The aluminum on the ground that had melted to the ground where the guy was walking over it? Okay.
That I've seen before. We had a tanker fire, a gasoline tanker fire on 101, and the gasoline fuel is moved around in aluminum tanks like that, thick aluminum tanks. And that one caught on fire and melted the aluminum like that.
Right.
So I have seen aluminum melt like that in a structure fire or other fire.
Let's talk for a sec about how a firestorm creates. And it's my understanding that a fire has to build its fuel and consume its oxygen to intensify over time as heat builds up over time. But we're having this firestorm. These fires happen in a matter of a couple hours and created thousands of degrees temperature without any provocation from fuel to build itself. It just happened, it seems like.
Yeah. Seems like.
Right. I mean, it just happened over a couple hours, and then it was just about, how the fires were spreading. But the initial destruction was here, there, and everywhere, and everything down to the bone of the homes, literally, where all that's left is the fireplace. But there's no iron tubs, there's no granite counters. I mean, we went through Old Redwood Highway here and went Mark Rest Road, and it was just amazing how there was nothing left. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
When I show this picture to people, they're absolutely amazed that this can occur. First of all, we have the sense that wildfire, high-intensity wildfire, like depicted in this particular picture, absolutely engulfs and explodes houses into flames.
Complete devastation as far as the eye can see. Home after home, street after street in Santa Rosa reduced to rubble.
You got to see this to believe this. I'm going to have Martin pan up to the left. You're looking at a neighborhood that goes block after block after block that is completely and totally and overwhelmingly destroyed. But this is in the flats here. The wind was blowing, and obviously this just became an incinerator. This is called Coffee Park. It's a part of Santa Rosa, not far from the freeway, and this place is just destroyed. There's really almost nothing left. We have some people walking up and down, some of them seeing their houses for the first time, breaking into tears, and just having a god-awful time.
Just memories, friendships.
Everything was lost.
First of all, we have the sense that wildfire, high-intensity wildfire, like depicted in this particular picture, absolutely engulfs and explodes houses into flames.
It's a guided tour through hell.
And you're looking at a scene that is probably reminiscent of hell.
The devastation looks and feels apocalyptic.
It looks like a bomb went off. Nothing left of, these homes.
This is the stuff you have nightmares about, your home burning down.
And by the way, let me just say that this high-intensity fire at its closest point is about 45 feet from this house. And let me also say that the photographer in this picture was feeling a considerable exposure to the flame. They were beginning to feel the pain that is accompanied by the exposure that produces injury. But that says nothing about what's going on with this house. So let's take a look and see what the house looks like after the fire. So the crown fire has spread through, and the house is still here. And the house is still there not because fire suppression, fire protection actions were taken to keep that house from burning down. This house actually did not ignite from that fire.
This one is block after block after block. It's really almost hard to imagine what's going on here. And
so where's the disconnect in all of this? Well, the disconnect is between what we feel as a person and what it takes to ignite this structure from flames. What we feel is pain and injury from exposures to heat that is considerably less than what it takes to actually even char wood. Let me give you an example.
And that house was for sale. It's not even a house anymore.
Hey guys, got some interesting clips I found out here. Check this out. Look at that left tree and watch it as it lights up. It's being burned from the inside. And I'll show you the clip again at faster, but you can see it getting brighter and brighter. And as the camera pans to the left, check out this fence. It's the same way. It's like red hot. It's like if you'd put a log in the fire for hours and it just becomes like cherry red. Look at that fence. This doesn't make any sense. There's nothing around these trees or that fence that would even start it on fire like that. I mean, it takes a little bit of time to start up pressure-treated wood in a tree like that. Here it is again. Watch it closely. Lights up. This guy thinks it could be an energy beam coming from an angle. He shows you right there. I don't know if that's true, but it doesn't make sense at all. Look at that.
What's up, world? It's Monday evening, October 23rd, 2017. I'm here at WashingtonPost.com, and they posted this video of this gentleman who was able to save his home from the fires in California. Listen to his description and account of what happened.
I don't know what it is about the fire that we had. It was so hot and the winds were so strong, they were able to start wood that would be very, very difficult. I love this place, and so I was determined to protect it. I had always worried about the fire, and I bought some fire equipment and I studied up. I looked at some videos, and they talk about a wall of flame coming through and then giving you a time to kind of clean up before your house really catches fire. In other words, you can put out little fires and things like that. So that's kind of what I was prepared for. But this didn't turn out to be that way. It would come through with sparks and gas, hot gas. You know, my eyebrows were burned, and then it would turn around and come back again from another side. It was in eddies and swirls, and the winds were gusting. I didn't, of course, have time to appreciate it, but the intensity of it was prolonged much longer than I thought. I didn't even know this one was on fire. So where did it started right there, I guess. But look, there's it just burned out there, and that part fell off. I go around at night with a flashlight and I say, "Oh, this tree's on fire," and sure enough, it'll soon fall. There's a lot of that's what I've been doing, is going over the chainsaw and trying to stop the smoldering fires and clear the roads. And so I didn't have time to enjoy the show, and at the end, I don't feel that self-congratulatory about having been through it. It's just, you know, doing what you can. And you can see they were protected. They weren't.
So he said it was like sparks of gas, and it would turn around, and then it would come back. And then, if you noticed, the part where he was at this tree.
It was prolonged longer than I thought. I didn't even know this one was on fire. So where did it started right there, I guess. But look, there.
It started down here at the bottom of the trunk of the tree.
It was it just burned out there.
And it burned out. Thing wants to act crazy. So, what's really going on there, everybody? Comment, like, subscribe. Take care. God bless.
We're here today at the West Fraser Center to talk about the fire situations that occurred recently in the Caribou. So this year presented an unprecedented natural disaster environment for the people of Quesnel, the community and region of the Caribou, Western Canada, and Canada as a whole. Currently, at the time of filming, there are over 27 fires still burning. This is well over 2 months after the first fires were spotted. So these fires have caused the evacuation of a great deal of communities in the local area. This led to the cancellation of a great deal of local community events. On this episode of Upfront, we're going to be talking with Mayor Bob Simpson about how the community of Quesnel dealt with this situation and what we're doing in the future to mitigate this loss. We're here today with Mayor Bob Simpson on this episode of Upfront. We're going to discuss one of the most difficult summers that we've had in the Caribou in recent years and what we did to mitigate the issues that occurred, and also what we're doing to follow up. Hi, and welcome to Upfront, Bob.
Thanks for having me on the show again.
Well, folks, sorry about that last clip. That was a little strange, the way that kind of went on. But the fires are, what can I say about these fires? They're beyond belief. It's, who knows if there's directed energy weapons involved. I guess it's possible. Billy, a lot of his prophecies deal with these hurricanes and fires, and we've talked about these prophecies a little bit before. We've talked about the fires before. If someone's new to the show, I'll just rattle quickly down some. 2013, we had the Rim Fire in Northern California. It burned 402 square miles, threatened the water supply of San Francisco. The Pony Complex Fire in Idaho, that was in 2013, burned 150,000 acres. The Funny River Fire in Alaska burned about 200,000 acres. That's 302 square miles. That was near the Kenai Peninsula. Carlton Complex Fire in Central Washington, that's 2014, burned 390 square miles. That's 4 times larger than Seattle, 256,000 acres. These fires are megalithic and monolithic beyond belief. The Fort McMurray fire in Canada, 1.5 million acres. That's the largest one. Do you hear about it? Is it talked about? No. This year we've experienced Hurricane Harvey, 51 inches of rain in Houston. The damage, I don't think, has been completely calculated, maybe $40 billion worth of damage. Hurricane Irma, I think we had 7 million people in Florida without power for a while, 185 mile an hour wind, 650,000 people evacuated. Yet, we forget about these things. We just forget about them. Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, 3.4 million people without power, still without power, still without water. And then in 2017, this year, we've had the Rice Ridge Fire, which I believe was in the Lolo National Forest in Montana, over 100,000 acres. Checobar Fire was about 190,000 acres. That was in Oregon as well. And then the fires in California, one which burned 5,000 structures, the Tubbs Fire, the Detweiler Fire, which was, I believe, the one that destroyed about 68 homes, something like this. So this is part of the disasters of the third millennium that Billy's talked about before. And the potential third world war is what we're looking at until the people of the earth can start to relearn the creational natural laws. What are the creational natural laws? They include the law of love, which is the highest principle in all evolution or all creation. The next law is very important, is the law of striving, that every animal, every plant, every human being has to strive to survive. And your innermost creational personality is what causes the impulses for striving. These impulses come from your spirit form, your innermost creational personality, and follow those impulses, because without striving, there is no sense of life. Without striving, there is no happiness. If you're dealing with a depression right now, it could be that you need to focus on striving. Striving is related to your evolution. Striving is the reason we're here, not the pursuit of pleasure or what we think brings us happiness, which it really doesn't. So the other creational natural laws that I can pull up here from my memory, there's called a law of an intactness, the law of prosperity. The law of prosperity says that if you follow the other laws, it should lead you into various kinds of prosperity. But if you don't strive enough, you're not going to prosper. If you don't have the law of harmony in operation, which is the law of neutral positive thinking, to manifest the desired circumstances in your life, you have to think in a neutral positive way. And if you don't, chances are you're being steered by your subconscious or your unconscious, which will lead you into most likely disaster. So one way or another, your thoughts are going to bring about circumstances, these circumstances of your life. If you don't consciously focus on steering yourself to good, neutral, healthy, positive thoughts, you are going to manifest negative circumstances in your life through unconscious and subconscious thoughts. So steering your thoughts is critical all the time. Continually evaluate your thoughts. Tell yourself, I am confident, I'm optimistic, I'm relaxed, I'm cheerful, I'm enthusiastic, I'm thankful, I'm in harmony, I persist, I persevere, I endure, I'm calm, I'm satisfied. This is the notion of good, neutral, positive thinking. Billy has also written a great book. It's called The Way to Live. It teaches us to be friend to ourselves, to be our own best friend. So that means we never have feelings of inferiority. We never allow ourselves into self-abuse. Do not, and this is something I'm struggling with, I struggle with, do not let yourself be overcome with pity for animals or people where horrible things have happened to them. That can destroy your consciousness. And also, don't let yourself fall into self-pity. That's another thing we have to watch out for. So be your own best friend. And part of that means taking care of yourself, eating right, working out, dress well, grooming. Do not follow your passions. If you get hung up following your passions, whether it's lust, whether it's addictions, whatever your passions are, do not follow them. Be gentle to yourself, but do not flatter yourself. If you follow your lusts, your vices, and addictions, you'll end up like one running through the desert, dying of thirst, smoldering. Fulfill your duty to yourself. Always act and think in a good way. Allow yourself to forget the negative. Nothing is constant. Remember that. Human beings, we are like the waves of the ocean. We are very much like the waves of the ocean. Remember all these things. They're very, very important principles to remember. Our consciousness is very much like the evolution or the growth of a tree. You have good thoughts in your consciousness, just like you have good plants in a garden. You need to nurture those good, healthy thoughts that are in your consciousness, and they will lead to good feelings and good habits. You'll develop good habits. It's very interesting. If you focus on nurturing your good thoughts, you'll develop these habits which help you. It's amazing. You'll fall right into the habits, and those habits will drive towards good circumstances in your life. Unfortunately, many people allow their thoughts to be steered by the media, and they don't have independent thinking. Learn independent thinking. Think for yourself. Don't let me or anyone else think for you. Because a human being is the forger of his own fortune. And by the means of your good thoughts, you can bring, and you do bring, good circumstances in your life. Maintain a neutral, balanced thinking. Make the effort to clarify your thoughts. By clarifying your thoughts, you will remove the confusion. I'm confident, I'm optimistic, I'm cheerful, I'm relaxed. Remove the confusion. Create the boundaries, the categories. Practice, put effort, and this will lead to harmony. Clarify means to make things less confused, more comprehensible. Clarify means you clear out the uncertainty. Remember, I'm confident, I'm optimistic. You want to get rid of the ambiguity. Anxiety comes from the unknown. Get to the bottom of what's bothering you. Look into it. Study it. The less unknowns you have, the more understanding you have. So this is a constant. This is part of our growing. This is to get rid of the negative and impure thoughts, particularly around anxiety. Anxiety, it's totally destructive. Cast anxiety out. Get rid of all anxiety. Remember, you're confident, you're optimistic, you're relaxed, you're cheerful. In fact, you have enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is one of the most productive things you can have. It can turn your life around. Your enthusiasm. Your consciousness is like a garden, and you want to grow the good, healthy thoughts. Rip the weeds out. Get rid of those negative repeating thoughts. Do not allow those negative repeating thoughts to take over. They're not going to. What you think, you make real. You need to nurture the good, positive thoughts. You need to have a good opinion of yourself, just like it says in The Way to Live. You need to be your own best friend. No feelings of inferiority. Because no matter what bad opinions you have of yourself, but you need to get rid of those bad opinions, because every person goes to the level of the Ishwish. That's my understanding. We all make it through those levels of evolution. If you have a spirit form, and you do, you have the power of the universe behind your thoughts. The power behind your thoughts comes from the universe itself. So you have nothing to worry about. It's just a matter of time. And so you think a thought, you steer that thought, and that leads to inner freedom and good circumstances. There's even a kind of prayer, not to a God, not to a Heavenly Father. The universal consciousness is a neutral spiritual energy. It's not a Heavenly Father. But you kind of pray to your material consciousness. It's kind of interesting. And you can say things like, do not throw me into confusion and delusion, but release me from my misunderstanding. These were some of the prayers of Enoch. It's not to some Heavenly Father up there. The universal consciousness is not a Heavenly Father. If you decide to walk up to the top of the building and jump off, you're going to splat on the sidewalk. Heavenly Father would save you from your own stupidity. Universal consciousness allows you to make your mistakes, even if they're fatal. And that doesn't mean that people and animals are not put in very difficult, sometimes horrific circumstances, particularly when a planet is out of balance like ours is. So it's time to take back our planet. It's time to bring good circumstances in your life through good, healthy thoughts. Remember, I'm the master of my own destiny. I create good circumstances in my life through good feelings, through good habits. I bring forth the good circumstances in my life through controlling my thoughts. Remember, you have unconscious thoughts, but always focus on the law of harmony. If you have harmony in your spirit, harmony in your consciousness, you will bring to you good circumstances. The power of your mind, your unconscious, is incredible. So focus on a neutral, positive thought process, and you will bring good circumstances in your life. Thanks for listening. This is Ohio Exopolitics. My name is Mark Snyder. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day.